For all my school life, I did not write a single alphabet in my test paper, because somewhere it was against my aesthetic that somebody's going to test me and tell me how I'm doing. I didn't like it.
Sadhguru, when you say paying attention, like for example, kids when they study or anything…
No. Textbook is not something that you can pay attention to. I will tell you about my textbook experience. My father, I hope he doesn't watch this video. He was a very strict disciplinarian. He was academically such a level of excellence, always first, second, right through his medical courses, everything. But I was more compassionate. I wanted everybody to be ahead of me. So, all my test papers, I always… very consistently, I got only 6 zeros. I remember this so well that I hope we're still torturing the children with that monthly report card. Are we? Still? Even if the dinosaurs evolve, the schools don't evolve. So, they give this report card every month. Always it was a yellow card. Is it still a yellow card? Always it was some reason it was a yellow-colored card. And when this card is given, I see some students in the class are strutting around because they are first, second, whatever. Some are sitting around and crying because they're afraid to go home, I don't know what they got in their report card. I always took it from my teacher and took it and gave it to my father. Never ever I opened and saw what is inside, because I thought this is a transaction between my teacher and my father. I didn't want to look into those things. But for all my school life, I did not write a single alphabet in my test paper, because somewhere it was against my aesthetic that somebody's going to test me and tell me how I'm doing. I didn't like it. So, right through my school, I did not write a single alphabet in the monthly test. Only in the final exam, I wrote just enough to go to the next class. Always went to the next class, never got retained. But this is how it was. Why I'm saying this to you is, every time my father saw this, he opened it and saw, and he would blow up like a volcano. And he would go through 2-3 days of turmoil, seeing this yellow paper. And after 3 days, my teacher is asking, "Where is your marks card? Bring it back." Because the zeros were consistent, the numbers I never varied, I was consistent. But I think every time they wrote nastier and nastier comments, which made my father go up. 2-3 days he's in a volcano state, and then the teachers are asking, "Where is the marks card? Bring it back." My father says, "I won't sign it, I am ashamed. I will not sign this paper." I said, "Okay." They say, "Then you must bring your father." He says, "I will not come to the school, I am ashamed to come there." I just didn't understand what this whole drama was, because I was just trying to figure what the hell is this life about. I was just trying to understand the ant that crawls, the leaf that comes, the flower that blossoms, the clouds that move, that moon that becomes small, big, all kinds of things. And my own chest, breathing and food that I eat, I'm just engrossed by everything in the universe, but nobody is giving me any marks for that. I did not expect that, but I'm saying my story was just to find out what is the story of this life. What is the story that's going on here? is this a fantastic story? Because in my eyes, though I could not figure what is the story at that time, it was something fantastic happening. I don't know what it is, why it is, but I know something fantastic is happening and it deserved all my attention. So much attention that what was happening in the textbook, this doesn't matter. I was talking about he being a strict disciplinarian, evening 7 to 9, we must focus on our textbook. So this is all set, very disciplined life. We must come home, whatever we're playing, by 6:30, 6:45 we must come back, 7 o'clock we must shower and sit down and we must study something. If I opened a book, I would find one small speck on the page. That speck would engage me so much. Next 2 hours, I would be just watching this speck. This speck would become like a doorway to the universe for me. But I wouldn't read a single word in the textbook. But I wouldn't be looking around here and there. Anybody who's looking at me, in their imagination, they would be thinking I'm reading. But one little tiny speck on the page just absorbed me so much, I just couldn't move away from it. It took me a lot more time to realize, ultimately anything you want to know, it is in training your attention, not just gobbling up information. If your attention is trained, it can do phenomenal things to you. That is what storytelling is about, to train your attention beyond your logic, beyond your likes and dislikes, beyond what you think is right and wrong, simply to be able to be absolute attention to something. And story is capable of cultivating that attention in children. So my grandmother told the most fantastic stories, and I will never be able to tell like her because she would go into such details, such details. I didn't believe a word that she said, but it was so fascinating. And she trained all our attention, absolutely, with her storytelling. Shall I share one of her stories just to…
Yes, absolutely.
My great-grandmother lived to be 113, 113 years of age. Now, when she was 65 or 66, I think her husband passed away around that time. And after that, after 2-3 years, around 60, when she was 68, she decided she will move out of the home where she was living. It's a very large household, very, land-owning family, big land-owning family. So she moved out and built a small temple, not for any god, but for herself. She is that kind of a woman. People used to say she's a devil of a woman, not because she harmed anybody, she did anything, simply because she wouldn't die. She just wouldn't die. Everybody thought her husband died, some of her children died. I think all of her children died before she went. And some of her grandchildren died, a few great-grandchildren died, but she just won't die. So, and another reason why they called her a devil is because she would laugh. If she laughed, a hoot of laughter, the whole street would shake. Those days, women were not supposed to laugh so loudly. They were supposed to laugh in a controlled way, he. Beyond that, they're not supposed to laugh. I don't know how men lived with women who cannot laugh. But it was so, they were not supposed to laugh, but this woman could not control. When she laughed crazy. So they said she laughs like a devil. So I started thinking, oh, devil is the laughing one, what does the god do? Nobody ever talked about him laughing. So, all this. Anyway, she lived a very ecstatic life in the sense, she would be sitting and When I saw her, she's over 100 years of age. She had hair right below her knees, flowing, huge amount of hair, and tears flowing from her eyes and laughing and sometimes singing, sometimes dancing, over 104, 105 years of age at that time, dancing wildly and tears and laughter. When she is in the puja room, I could go and do what I want. I would displace all the gods and I sit there. She's okay with that. With anybody else, they would kill you. But she was fine with anything. And she would take flowers with her feet and throw it to the gods like that. So, as wild as she was so sensitive to life that, when she was living out, but when we children went, she would come to see us. In the morning, if you give her breakfast, this guy who's standing and telling his host solely, the blue-shirted man, please, hello? Yourself. He didn't understand what is attention. No, not him. Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Please, somebody take care of him. So, if they gave her breakfast, she would take this and feed it to the ants, to the sparrows, to the squirrels, and she would simply sit there. Certain people who had assumed that they are her self-appointed advisors, they would come and tell her, "You old woman, you don't eat anything, you will die one day like this, without eating." They all died. She lived on. And sometimes I asked her, she would sit there with tears flowing, looking at the ants. I thought, why is she so emotional about the ants? I was like maybe 5, 6 years of age. I was going about stamping all the ants. I thought they were a good game to stamp. But she would be having tears feeding the ants. I thought she's very emotional about these ants, but never she stopped me from doing my job of stamping the ants. But she would be watching the ants and tears flowing out. Then one day I asked her, "Why are you so emotional about these ants? What is your problem?" She laughed and she said, "One day you will know." It took me over 20 years to realize what she said. For me to experience what it is to be knowing life beyond the limitations of your own physicality and your psychological structure, to know life as it is happening right now. That this is a living cosmos. Either you are a part of it or you live here, you versus cosmos. You versus cosmos is a stupid competition to get into. Hello? You versus cosmos is an absolutely idiotic competition to get into. But this is how it is. If you are committed to your identity of being an individual, unknowingly you have become you versus the cosmos. You're talking about one's insecurities, anxieties, sufferings, all this is just this. You are you versus cosmos, you have to suffer, how else? So to realize that your body and mind, your physiological structure and psychological structure is not a trap, it is a possibility to go beyond. To realize that it took over 20 years for me after she said those words, but this is the power of storytelling, that it takes you beyond the logic of your psychological structure. And when we sat there listening to her, though I didn't believe a word of what she was saying, I knew she never met these Rajkumaris and Rajkumaras and their hair and stuff, she was probably talking about her own hair. But the important thing is, she grabbed our eyeballs, absolutely, absolutely. And that was the only function, really. She grabbed without uttering one endearment, without telling, "I love you," without even hugging you or kissing you or anything. She just grabbed us and made us a part of herself. This is the power of storytelling. So that's how I experienced storytelling. Every summer we were just waiting to get back there. But I saw her only consciously, probably only 5, 6 years after that, at the age of 113. Till the last day, she was completely independent. At the age of 111, she got throat cancer because in those days, women were allowed to use tobacco only after they got married. Before marriage, they could not use tobacco, but after marriage, they could use. So she got married at the age of 14. On the very first day, she exercised her right. From that day onwards, she's been chewing tobacco. 99 years she chewed tobacco. At the age of 111, she got throat cancer. She refused to go to the doctor, she refused to take painkillers, she refused to be treated. About 1.5 to 2 years she suffered, it was swollen like that. I saw her in that condition, she couldn't speak, but she simply sat there without medication, without painkillers, and after 2 years of that extreme pain, she left. Until the last day, whatever she needed, she was doing for herself, living in her own temple. A temple not for a god, but for herself, because she felt she deserves a temple.